During the semester, science has continuously taught me new things on a daily basis each time I walk into class. The work and notes have helped teach me things I didn't know, and the labs have helped further understand and visualize them. This has led to my continued fascination and for further understanding of each subject. Every unit has taught me different things and helped for my continued appreciation for science. For my first talking point, the ecology unit has taught me how each and every species relies on each other for survival. All life comes from the sun and everything we need traces back to it, be it the food we eat or the air we breathe. The food chain and food webs help convey the way we depend and interact with different species, with life coming full circle thanks to decomposers, returning the nutriments of the corpses back into the earth for plants to use again. Trophic levels help me understand what stage the food chain is on, be it producer, consumer, up until the top carnivore has its meal. Sadly, because of how the food chain works, any toxins that get into the food chain at an early trophic level get amplified as the food chain progresses. And with an increase of pesticides in ecosystems, it could spell disaster for some species, especially for tertiary consumers and beyond. These are the talking points that piqued my interest when reflecting on the ecology unit. Something that caused me a shift in thinking happened in the chemistry unit. The particle theory was fascinating and brought with it a bunch of explanations for other things in the unit. The human body is matter and thus the particle theory should apply to it, so it got me thinking. The first thing I thought of is that I'm truly and utterly a bunch of particles thinking as one. The part, all matter is composed of very tiny objects called particles, tells me this. The second thing I thought of is that I'm always in constant movement, whether I'm sitting still or sleeping. Particles present in matter are always in motion, and thus so am I. The last and personal favorite thing that I thought of is that we truly never touch anything because the theory states all particles have spaces between them, and to touch something is to come so close as to be or come into contact with, and I can't come into contact with an object if there is space between it. So now, when my brother tells me not to touch his phone, I can simply say, in truth, I'm technically not touching it. Out of all the units, I feel that learning about electricity will help me the most on a day-to-day basis. After learning about efficiency in electrical devices in class, I am now more conscious and aware of what light bulbs my family and I use in our home. In the future, when climate change becomes more imminent, we would look to save on energy in any way possible, and electrical efficiency would be one of the talking points. To reduce the wasted energy on heat and instead use that energy to make things last longer or better. Most of the light bulbs in my home are fluorescent, but I'm thinking as LEDs are getting better at spreading out light output and becoming cheap, it might be worth switching to LEDs as my fluorescents die out. After reflecting on things, it made me want to learn more about percent efficiency in my upcoming years in science. The last thing I'm taking from this course this semester is my favorite unit, space. I find space so fascinating, and I was super excited to learn about it this semester. Space seems to be the future for humanity, and its importance is growing as our home planet is deteriorating and will need a new home in the future. Thus, when he talked about the increasing amount of space junk orbiting our planet, I feel it will have an increasing effect on us human and society in general. As time passes, the likelihood of one functioning satellite hitting another increases, and if the satellite is for military purposes, then that could spell disaster in a crisis. Or maybe a launch of the new NASA rockets going to the moon could get hit by a floating piece of metal. Maybe one of the pieces of space junk could come down to Earth and hit something, like a home, and cause distress to society as a whole. I feel companies should have a return function on all of their devices instead of just leaving the junk in space. It's like littering. I remember going to the Science Center in Toronto, and when I first went to one of their computers that was displaying satellites, I looked and thought that each little dot was a functioning satellite, when in reality, the legend stated that the majority of what I was looking at was space junk. This is what I think affects the planet at large. With the information I gathered from this course, I can take this to the next few years of my education and apply this to my everyday life. I can keep adding to the information I gained through this course and continue to develop my understandings of science. I can use the information I learned during this course to help solve problems and get explanations for why and how things work during my life and for the future.